Welcome, everyone. I would like to introduce you to Kennedy Nail and Cheryl Miller. They have joined the LCT team, and they're really excited to be part of the team. You may notice that they are sending 486s out for those of you who have been funded, which is a great deal of you. We have 112 applications that have been funded of the 120 applications that were filed. So that's really exciting. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Now, so let's get started. So I'm going to go over the summary of funding. Jennifer is going to talk about how to read your bill, your internet bill. And Kyle is going to talk about deadlines and next steps. So I just want to remind you that we're at the end of May. We're sort of in between right now. Right now, you should be looking at your bills, getting ready to file any bears that you're going to be thinking about doing. Definitely you want to look at your bill to make sure if you're expecting it to be discounted, that it is discounted. That's a really important task to take care of. So let me just go over the summary of funding. $2.3 million was requested by LCT libraries in the 2022 filing window, and $1.1 million has been funded. 8 applications are still waiting for the funding of 120 applications that were filed. 2 of those are in final review. One of those is the City of Fort Worth. Really excited about that because they are participating in E-rate for the very first time. This will be their very first funding commitment decision letter once they get funded. 1 application is still considered out of window. That's Taylor. So hopefully we'll be seeing the May streamlined decisions by the FCC. Every month, they basically make a bunch of decisions and put it all in their newsletter at the end of the month. And so we're hoping that Taylor's going to be moved in window once that application has been reviewed by the FCC. 1 application is returned for additional review, and 1 has been returned to initial review, and that is Chambers Public Library. So Jennifer is going to talk to you about how to look at your bill, which is a really important part of the process. Jennifer?
Thank you, Caroline, and welcome everyone. So we're talking about your upcoming funding year for July 1 of 22 to June 30th of 23. If you have gotten new service from a different service provider or you're upgrading, you want to ensure that everything is set up. Find out if that service provider is going to have any delays on the new service. If it's not going to start July 1, try to get them to tell you when it will start. Because if there is an issue, there are steps that need to be taken so you don't lose any of the funding. If your existing service costs more than what the new service is going to cost, there will be an out-of-pocket expense to the library. We can do a service sub if your new service isn't going to start July 1 to split it, but that's something that we need to know ahead of time. And then now is also your time to figure out how you want to be invoiced. Do you want to do the bear, which is you will pay the full monthly charges in full, or if you want SPY, which is your service provider invoicing, and that's where you get the discount on your bill. So some service providers do require you to let them know how you want. They may have a form or it's in an email. So again, if you want them to provide the discount on the bill, you need to notify them. You'll complete that form and submit. If you don't want the discount, you will just submit your payment and then file for reimbursement. And you can do that monthly if you choose, quarterly, or all at one time, 1 full year. So we're coming up to the end of 2021-22, and if you paid everything in full and you want to submit the one-time bear, when you get your final bill in June, you can go ahead and submit for the 12 months. So how to read your bill. You want to look at the invoicing period. Generally, they have, it doesn't always start on the 1st of the month, but you look through, it could be, say, July 15th through August 14th. You want to look at your total current monthly charges. Look at what your bid was and make sure that's the charge that the service provider is charging you. We have seen where they overcharge you, and so that's something that needs to be addressed. You want to look at any ineligible charges, and you want to make sure that the bandwidth is correct. We've seen things happen where you guys requested one bandwidth, it was never upgraded, but you might be charged for the upgraded bandwidth. So those are things you really want to look at and make sure that it's happening. And then if there are any out of the ordinary charges, extra charges, fees that shouldn't be on there, you want to look at those. The other thing too, I want to go back one more on the new service that's upcoming. You want to get in writing to cover yourself a disconnect from your existing service provider, because you could be charged for both. If you do not disconnect your old service, they'll continue to bill you. Here's an example of a bill. Up on top, it lists the last statement, the balance, payments that were received, and then the current monthly charges. And this is where you're going to look at, what's all included on this. And this is where you'll go back to your bid or a previous bill to make sure it's correct. One-time fees, sometimes you have an activation fee on here. It's a late fee. They also gave a billing credit. Your state recovery charges, these are fees that the provider pushes onto the clients, and you're charged, for this example, $98. So you take the total monthly, the state recovery, taxes, types, fees, and you get your amount. The late fee isn't an eligible charge. Also, on your internet, it lists, and not all providers do this, but it does list the bandwidth. So you got 200 megs of internet. And then you look at what your current charge is. Is that matching, again, what you're supposed to be paying? In this example, the light lavender color is your bill date, January 10th through February 9th. This is what your current monthly in yellow. So this is an AT&T bill, and so you have an access charge, and then you have the actual bandwidth internet with the managed router charge. And you will combine those two charges plus any taxes and fees to get what your total monthly charge is. And again, you have ineligibles on this one. It's a on-site maintenance of $75. So that's not going to be part of your what E-rate will pay. So that's an ineligible charge. And next step will be Kyle with deadlines and the next steps.
Thank you, Jennifer. So let's go ahead and first talk about invoicing deadlines. So all libraries who did not use the SPI method and paid in full for services, and they're bills reflect that they're being charged the full amount for those services, they will need to submit a bare invoice for funding year 2021, which is the current year we're in right now, from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. And if you're not certain about what discount method you are currently using, if you're being invoiced via SPI on your current invoice, let us know and we can help you determine that. The deadline to file an invoice for funding year 2021 internet services is going to be October 28th, 2022. If you are submitting a bare, you should file this essentially as soon as you have paid the last bill in the funding year 2021 period. It's better to do it early and often. Some of you may have Category 2 services for some basic maintenance or something similar. The deadline for that is a little bit later, and that's January 28th, 2023. But still, as soon as you have paid the bill or the invoice for those services, it's best to move forward with filing that bare as soon as possible. Let us know if you need help with that. You may need to do a few steps to set up the library and yourself with the ability to file a bare, and it would be best to take care of that as soon as possible. Moving on to Form 486 deadlines. So a number of you have recently received a funding commitment decision letter. As soon as you receive the funding commitment decision letter, that is going to start a 120-day timeline, or July 1st, the first day of your services, is going to represent the start of that start of that 120-day timeline in which you have to file the Form 486. Now, the Form 486 is going to notify USAC of the service start date of the services that you have received a funding commitment decision on. Typically, this is going to be July 1st if you are not seeing an interruption in services. If you have services that start later than July 1st, if you're not able to make that cutoff, and your contract with the service provider stipulates that you have a later start date, keep that in mind as you're filing the Form 486. The 486 also is going to certify compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act. And again, the deadline is going to be October 29th, 2022, and that's 120 days after July 1st of 2022. But if you receive a funding commitment decision letter after July 1st, it's going to be 120 days after that date. So again, usually just best to file this early, and as soon as you have your funding commitment decision letter and have had a chance to review it, it's best to just file that as soon as possible if everything looks good on the funding commitment decision letter. Let's talk about next steps. So we are quickly approaching the funding year 2023, and essentially the time in which you can file a new Form 470 for new internet services or potentially Category 2 equipment and services. So, this summer, please consider what is your library's internet needs in the future? Does your internet contract expire? Are you going to need new services starting, July 1st, essentially before July 1st, 2023? If so, before July 1st, 2024. Then if so, you should file a Form 470 for new internet services. If you're considering Category 2 equipment and services, you should file a Form 470 for that. And if you are expecting or if you're planning on increasing your internet bandwidth and you're expecting other changes similar to that, you may need to file a Form 470 as well to accommodate for that increase or that change. So keep that in mind as we are approaching the time to file the Form 470. You could file the Form 470 as early as July 1st, 2022. But just keep that in mind as we, approach the new funding year 2023 here. Moving on to to reiterate what Caroline said earlier, welcome again to Kendi Nail and Cheryl Miller, who are now part of the LCT support team. Again, you're probably receiving emails from them asking for you to certify your Form 486s and retain your funding commitment decision letters. Something that will be helpful to us to make it easier for us to help you is going to be adding both of them as new users in EPC. And we have instructions on the page here. Essentially, that is just going to mean logging into the EPC portal. On that landing page, there is going to be a button that says Manage Users. From there, you'll want to select the box next to your entity, your main entity, and then click on Add or Remove Existing User. And then you can copy and paste just the email, knail@eratecentral.com, and also then cmiller@eratecentral.com, and search for both of those, and we can check the box and click on Submit to add both of them. When they're both added, we'll just want to make sure that they have full rights for everything except for the Form 498, which should have no access. That can be done through the same process of going to Manage Users and then selecting Manage User Permissions. One other thing to note here, if you are not receiving emails from Kendi Nail and Cheryl Miller, you may just want to check with your internet or your email filtering software and make sure that they are whitelisted so that their emails are not being filtered and mistakenly being sent to your spam folder, your junk folder. Since you may not have received an email from them before, they may not be whitelisted yet. So take the time and just check your spam and junk folder occasionally and make sure to whitelist both Kendi and Cheryl so that they are able to help you file for E-rate here. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Caroline.
Thanks, Kyle. So I just want to make sure that everybody sort of understands what we talked about today. Please feel free to raise your hand and or ask questions in the chat. We're happy to answer any specific questions that you have. But just want to review that it's really important for you to look at your bill. If you you look at your existing bill. If you've been participating in the E-rate program and you're expecting that your invoice, that the service provider is invoicing you in your behalf and applying discounts to the bill, now's the time to find out if they're not, because what happens is sometimes people think that they're getting their discounts and they're not, and then it becomes a really big deal to try and file a bear form at the end right before the deadline. So please don't be that person, because you don't want that stress. You really don't. It doesn't have to be stressful. It can be a lot less stressful. So do look at your bill. Make sure that you also pull out your contract if you've got a contract right now, and look at the expiration date on the contract. Make sure that the services that are on the contract are services you're receiving, and also make sure that you know the contract expiration date. If your contract expires before June 30th, 2024, then you'll need to file a Form 470 for next year. So we'll be sending outreach emails to remind you of that process, but the sooner you get ahead of it, the less stressful it'll be. And Cheryl and Kennedy will both be sending you reminders regularly, and to make sure that you don't miss any deadlines. If you haven't been funded, as one of those 8 people who haven't been funded yet for 2022, be on the lookout for that Form 486 email. They'll be sending you the information on how to file your Form 486. And once you get that Form 486 filed, your service provider will then be able to start applying discounts to your bill as soon as July 1st comes around. The services, that funding year is from July 1st through June 30th. So if you have any new upgraded services, make sure that they're in line to begin July 1st. And again, if you have any questions, please email lct@eratecentral.com, or you can call our LCT hotline at 516-801-7820. Remember that we have our next webinar on June 23rd, and we're going to hopefully have some exciting information for you in June. So with that, I don't see any questions in the chat, and so we'll let you have the rest of your day back. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.